China has expanded bus services and cement roads to all townships and villages where conditions allow, paving the way for all farmers to travel and rise above poverty. China's State Council Information Office released a white paper titled Sustainable Development of Transport in China. It details the development of the country's transport sector, including how it has helped in poverty alleviation efforts. How has improved infrastructure changed the lives of hundreds of millions of Chinese farmers? Is this something uniquely Chinese? Joining me today are LUNYU, Associate Professor of School of Applied Economics at Renmin University of China, and Wang Dan, Chief Economist from Shanghai at the Hang Bank, China. Welcome to two ladies on our show. It is not happening very often. I'm very happy to see that. Now, according to this white paper, China has been expanding its transportation network in poverty-stricken areas, including launching better bus services and enhanced connectivity. Wang Dan, we all know this Chinese saying, if you want to get rich, build roads first. But exactly, help us understand, since when has the concept of bus services and cement roads been used to lift rural areas out of poverty, and how does it work?
At first glance, buses and cement roads seem too simple intervention for poverty alleviation, but empirically, actually, transportation has been proven to be the most effective public policy to reduce poverty on a large scale. We at Hang Bank China also do our fair share in poverty alleviation. In our experience, actually, it's extremely difficult to have a sustainable strategy if the locals do not have a transportation, especially roads, ready. So we've been helping farmers in Yuncheng of Shanxi province, for example, to sell their apples. And we can motivate all our staff to be part of it, and we can design all those online marketing channels like online streaming. But fundamentally, it won't be possible if the locals do not have a logistic network to ship their apples out. Because if they can't ship them out in time, they will lose the market.
Yeah, Professor Xie, is this a unique practice in China? What's the economic logic behind it?
This is not a unique practice in China, and the logic behind this is the collection policy lowers the transportation cost of labor and goods. That is, rural laborers and goods can arrive urban areas, and tourists and industry goods can come to rural areas with a lower cost. Lower cost means more earnings, so it enlarges the markets and benefits both urban and rural areas. In addition, the diffusion of technology can also benefit from the road and bus connectivity policy. Technology increases the productivity and finally benefits the rural areas.
Well, according to China's 13th five-year plan, Vice Minister of Transport Dai Dongchang said that China has paved or renovated over 4.2 million kilometers of roads in rural areas. China has expanded, as I said, bus services and cement roads to all townships and villages where conditions allow, which has provided convenience to 600 million farmers. Wang Dan, help us put these numbers into perspective. How big is that project, and what kind of resources must be needed to realize such a project?
This is a prime example of China's state capitalism in poverty alleviation and similar efforts. So when we look at those numbers, we don't just see the state investment in those remote areas. We also see that there are a lot of private capital behind it. So over the past decade, we can see that China has also upgraded its way of helping those poor. And through building roads and railroads, also the airlines, it has helped to not just ship the people out and in, but also goods out and in. It has helped movements in both ways, and this is the most critical part of it.
Professor Xie, what is your opinion on the same question? How have China been able to carry out such a huge project, the planning process, the execution, and the maintaining of all of that? Wang Dan attributed to the state capitalism. I'm sure a lot of people will not agree with you, with her, but what is your opinion, Professor Xie?
Well, this transportation construction and the network building is actually part of the systematic targeted poverty alleviation program. So as we have seen that we not only build roads, but also connect the roads with the new firms built in rural areas, such as like the agricultural food process plants. So it is a systematic strategy to to alleviate poverty.
What is the difference between China's approach, I mean, the decision-making process, and the execution of it with similar endeavors in other countries? For instance, in I don't know, in Latin America and in Africa, if there is extreme poverty, would it be such an approach from top down with the design and then the targeted implementation and so on and so forth? Wang Dan?
China's approach is extremely different and very unique, actually, within the developing world. Because when we look at what's happening in India, in Brazil, in Argentina, what they do is that the government is mostly behind the scenes. They might provide a little bit of funding, but most of the work are done by NGOs. But in China, it's the state of capitalism, it is the public investment that is driving this effort. Of course, we have seen in the past decade that there is a lot of wasteful investment, and it's in a way unavoidable. But then the question is not about whether we should include the government in this effort or to be the mainstream of poverty reduction. It is really about what kind of approach and how smart the government has to be. Because in this process, you know that no one can do this alone, not even a powerful government like China. It has to engage all parties, all private capitals, companies, schools, state-owned enterprises, to all be part of it. And over time, I think it has gathered a momentum, and society has a consensus, and this is very important because even within America, the society with different parties, they do not have a consensus on how to reduce poverty, and this is another uniqueness in China.
An article from the Los Angeles Times says it is a stunning achievement that has improved many lives, especially through new roads, water systems and access to schools in remote communities. But like other policies in China, the program is a sweeping top-down effort that is vulnerable to corruption and often more focused on meeting a target and deadline than on the specific needs of those it is seeking to help. The title of the article is China fulfills a dream to end poverty, but not all poor people are feeling better off. Professor Xie, what is your reaction to such comment? Do you think it has some elements of truth, or do you disagree?
Well, I think we all agree that there is no perfect policy or measure. That is why the monitoring of the policy implication and the evaluation of the policy distributional effects are as important as the policy design itself. Our research team did a series of short-term and long-term effect evaluation of the poverty alleviation policy in China. We find that some households and areas benefit from the poverty alleviation policy more than some other households and areas, but the overall inequality is decreasing. It implies that the policy benefits the poor households more. And yeah.
Well, it seems that, yeah. Wang Dan, did you want to add something?
Yeah, because for many other issues, I do not have the first-hand experience, but for poverty, I do have some survey experience. In my postdoc, I did 3 years of rural survey with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And in those years of talking with rural residents, especially those people living in extreme poverty, I started to realize that poverty is not a choice. A lot of those people, actually most of them, are either having some sort of severe disease or some kind of disabilities. So what they really need is, one, the shift of social resources towards their way, medical resources, education for their children. The government need to actively seek them out and provide targeted help. And then two, they also need more opportunities. They need a job. They do not need cash transfer in most cases, because having a job is more sustainable. So I've seen that local governments are providing some jobs, sometimes even menial jobs to those people. It's really not much of income, but it's very important for them to live on their own.
According to the white paper, quality transportation infrastructure can fundamentally modernize rural areas. However, this is also the biggest challenge. Professor Xie, how daunting is that challenge, and what can be done? What about fiscal sustainability? I mean, we're talking about millions of, kilometers of roads and the maintenance and all of that.
I'm not quite an expert on this, but I think the quality transportation infrastructure facilities are very important for poverty alleviation, since it is a part of the poverty alleviation package. So the government spend money building the roads, and there is also a part of fiscal budget on maintaining on this transportation infrastructure.
Well, then, once again, looking at China's experiences, you've been in the field, you have done research. What kind of use will China's approach or experience have for other places in this world that's stricken by extreme poverty? Is there anything that can be replicated, let's say, for the other regions fighting the same challenge?
I think the most obvious solution actually is a state-backed investment into rural infrastructure. That's a very easy answer. As long as you have the financing, then many of the governments can replicate this approach. And another invention, I would say, that Chinese government has done is to cultivate this kind of specialized agricultural products or the e-business culture within China's rural area. And I've seen many successful examples. Within them, the one I like the most is the rise of Yunnan small grain coffee beans. For many years, the Yunnan beans, because it's too small a grain, that it's considered a flaw. Comparing to those big beans produced in Latin America and Africa, it's not welcomed. So it's not until 5 years ago, when Yunnan province has finally completed its network of transportation, then we have seen the real took off of this coffee bean industry, because it's not just about shipping out coffee beans to the rest of the world. It's also about shipping talents in to this region so they can improve the management and technology used in the coffee plantation. And this is a rather unique experience for many of Chinese poorer regions, but I think for many of the developing world, especially in Brazil or other Latin American countries with large land, and they could have learned a lot from China.
Yeah. Professor Xie, what do you think the experience China has, not just by building these roads, but also the integration of the transportation advantages with other local industries, such as agriculture, right, such as e-commerce? What do you think these experiences are telling people who are looking at China's development and trying to draw some lessons from it?
I think the experience of China is replicable. Actually, many developing countries like Ethiopia, Tanzania are actively working on road infrastructure construction, and they send officials to come to China to learn our experience. But what I want to emphasize here is that road infrastructure construction is one factor in poverty alleviation, but it alone is not enough. For example,
we don't have time. We don't have time to go into examples, but maybe another time we'll find to discuss this very important topic.
All right.
Many thanks to LUNYU and Wang Dan. With that, end of this edition of The Point with me, Lu Xin. As always, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, handle Lu Xin in Beijing. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.